Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. My name is Clayton Fletcher, and I am your host in fabulous Las Vegas. Happy to be bringing you another episode of the world's longest running poker strategy podcast, like ever. That's this one, the one you're listening to right now, TPE. Week 6 of 7 is officially in the books for me. I finished this week strong with a cash in event number 86, which was the PLO Mystery Bounty with $1,000 buy-in. This event attracted 5,500 players. I finished in 200th place. I won $2,490 for that. But to me, the real thrill of the moment was collecting my first ever live Mystery Bounty prize. I busted somebody, and the prizes ranged anywhere from $500 all the way up to $100,000. And I ended up getting 3 bounties. The first one was $1,000. The second one was $500. And the third one, also $500. With 275 players remaining in the tournament, the 2 $100,000 bounties were still up for grabs. So I was really torn between trying to collect those bounties and trying to win the bracelet. Maybe try to do a little bit of both. And I might have some interesting hands from the 2 days of this tournament in a future episode. But today I want to go over my main event, which I think you guys will really enjoy. I've got some very interesting hands from the main event to go over today. I'm going to do rapid fire style, the way we have in some previous episodes this summer, rather than just focusing on the subtleties of one particular hand or 2 particular hands. I'm going to kind of fly through and tell you guys about my main event run. Lots of commentary last week. I was on the Poker Stars Live YouTube channel with Joe Stapleton, Caitlin Komeski, James Hardigan, and more. I really enjoy doing commentary. It's actually kind of a dream job for me. So any chance I get to get into the booth is a blessing. But honestly, to be in there with Stapes, who's one of my best friends and somebody whose sense of humor I really enjoy, just like a dream come true to be able to spend all those hours working with Poker Stars as they simulcasted the main event. Now, the only thing that I'm unhappy about is that I had to say goodbye to my mom. She went back to Maryland this week, and it was so great having her here. It just reminded me of all the fun that we used to have in Vegas and all the times that she has shown up to surprise me when I made it to day 5, 6, or 7 of the main event. So Mom didn't care at all this year how deep I got in the main. She wasn't going to wait and see if I was cashing in the tournament or not. She planned her trip ahead of time, and she got to spend a whole week with me here in Vegas. We had a really great time. So I'm sorry that she is gone and that she won't be able to enjoy the vibes here, as the WSOP already feels like it's starting to wind down. Which, by the way, guys, that's totally fine with me. I like when it feels more empty, when people start leaving, everybody's main event dreams are crushed or whatever, and they're all going back to wherever they came from. And then I feel like we kind of get the city back right at the end. So I like to stay maybe an extra few days past when many players will return to their normal lives. I will be very sad when this is over. I love the World Series of Poker so much, even though I've actually ended up playing quite a bit at other places. And actually, I want to go over a hand that I introduced on the podcast last week from the Venetian. There was a $1,100 tournament, a one-day turbo at the Venetian, and I had a spot that we discussed last week. I want to go over it again, and this time I want to use GTO Wizard, my favorite tool for analyzing my play. It's kind of like having a private coach that can help you see where the holes in your game are and help you plug those leaks. So let's find out what GTO Wizard has to say about the way I played this hand. Just to refresh your memory, it's an $1,100 tournament, a one-day turbo event at the Venetian. I've run my 40K stack up to 80K, and now the blinds are 1,500 and 3,000. This tournament will pay 50 places. There are 130 players remaining out of the 450 or whatever who entered. And the action folds to the button. A Brazilian guy, I remember describing him. He's decked out in Hugo Boss. Very active player. He opens to 7K off of a stack of 120K. And the small blind folds, and it's now on me with ace of spades, nine of spades in the big blind. And I felt like it was a bit awkward. I decided to just call and see a flop. Let's see what the wizard thinks about that. The solver says ace nine of spades is a 100% pure call in this spot, in this exact situation with this stack size. So I'm very happy to get a check mark there. And now with 18,500 in the middle, the flop comes seven of clubs, four of diamonds, deuce of diamonds, 7-4 deuce with no spades. I have the ace of spades, nine of spades, and I checked from out of position. The solver actually bets out here a small percentage, like 9% of the time. And I think that's probably because we have such a range advantage. This is not a good flop for the pre-flop raisers advantage, generally speaking, but we still check it 91% of the time. But I do think this is important for us to learn how to find those times when you're supposed to lead out once in a while and mix in those leads on boards like this one that hit our range much better than they hit the pre-flop raisers. Anyway, we did both check, so let's go to the turn, which is the jack of diamonds. So seven of clubs, four of diamonds, deuce of diamonds, jack of diamonds. We still have just ace high with no straight or flush possibilities. And I led on this card. I bet 5,500 into the 18,500 pot, and my opponent called. Now the solver does approve this lead out. 8% of the time we lead out, even though we don't have any diamonds and we don't have anything. This is an 8% bet and 92% check situation. So I took an unorthodox line, but one that is still plus EV according to GTO Wizard. So I'm happy about that as well. Now when the opponent called, there's 29,500 in the middle, and the river comes the five of spades, completing a few straights, and I led 19K into 29.5, and villain made the call with the king of spades, deuce of spades. So he just had bottom pair, and he called a 2/3 pot size bet on the river. The solver never bluffs with my hand. Like, it's okay to lead out on the turn, but then we want to shut it down on the river. We are checking ace nine high 100% of the time. And I wanted to flip this one around and just check on villain's decision to call with king deuce here. And you guys aren't going to believe it. The solver loves villain's call. 99% call and only 1% all in, and never ever fold. So, wow, I was saying don't bluff a guy who can afford to get all dressed up and everything last week. But there you go. When you use the solver, you can learn how to get better at poker. And if you guys are interested in trying GTO Wizard out, I've got a great deal for you. There's a link in the description of this podcast. That's our partner link, our affiliate link. Just click that, and then you can get 24 hours, unlimited access to all of GTO Wizard's features. And then when your trial period expires and you're ready to purchase, you'll save 10% just because you clicked that link, which is gtowizard.com/p/TPE. Okay, one-day tournaments at the Venetian are super fun, especially in the summertime when they attract such a large field and big prize pools and everything. But what we really care about, I think we can all agree, is the main event. Now, those who listen every week to this podcast, you guys know I've been trying to get ready for this tournament all year long. In January, I started reviewing hands from the main event from last year, and I've just been getting ready and thinking about this tournament. I dream about winning this tournament, as so many of us do. I ended up showing up in the middle of level 2. The blinds were 200, 300 with a 300 big blind ante. And I looked around my table. I didn't recognize anybody, but one of my opponents asked me if I'll be doing stand-up comedy this summer. So obviously this is someone who recognized me. We started chit-chatting. His name is James, and James is a super nice guy, comedy fan. And I think that he mentioned he has listened to every episode of the podcast. So shout out to James. And for everyone else, I love when people come and say hi and just tell me they listen to the podcast, or they've seen me do stand-up, or they've heard me on Poker Go or the Poker Stars YouTube channel. Wherever you know me from, I always love when someone comes up and says hi, wishes me luck, or asks me how my summer's going now that we are, almost wrapping things up here in Vegas. If you are still here and you happen to run into me in the next week, please don't be shy. Come say hello. I'm very friendly. I think you will find that I'm pretty easy to talk to in person, and I always love to make new friends in poker. So come on over. Anyway, we started talking about comedy, and we were talking about doing commentary, and other players at the table said they were going to subscribe to the podcast as well. So if you guys are listening, shout out to my day one main event table. Really good group of guys. Anyway, 200, 300, I have the Queen of Diamonds, Jack of Hearts in the hijack, and I open to 700. And James, this player we're talking about, is on the button, and he 3-bets to 2,000. Action folds all the way back to me, and I just threw it away. I do not wish to play Queen Jack offsuit from out of position against a player I don't know very well, and especially if said player has listened to every episode of this podcast. He knows me a lot better than I knew him, so I figure I'd just lose the 700 out of my 60,000 starting stack, and that is totally fine. In the same level, I also opened from my button with the King of Diamonds, 9 of Spades, so King 9 offsuit there. Again, I made it 700, and this time the small blind 3-bet to 2,800, so 4x my original bet. The big blind folded, and this guy was from Israel. He was very aggressive. I felt like there was a good chance King 9 could even be good, and I was in position, but this is the main event. I decided to just throw that one away as well. I think some of these decisions may surprise some of you who think that I'm just a wild man at the table. But, early on day one, there's really no reason to put yourself into a marginal spot where you could end up losing tons and tons of chips. Actually, my main event day one table ended up being somewhat aggressive, probably more aggressive than most tables in this tournament. And especially from having done commentary the night before with Stapes and the gang for Poker Stars YouTube channel, I definitely felt like my table was way more aggressive than what we had seen on TV the night before. So I was kind of waiting. I didn't want to get 3-bet anymore. It's kind of bad for your image to keep raise folding all the time. So I finally waited until I got a really good hand, and I opened with pocket jacks from early position. It folds around to a player from Mexico in the big blind. We have tons of chips, by the way. And he called. I flopped the nuts on Jack 4-3 Rainbow, and I bet the same amount on the flop that I had raised it to pre-flop, 700. And my opponent called. The turn, the King of Diamonds brought the flush draw, and Villain checked to me again. I decided to check behind, a little deception here, maybe kind of give off the impression that I don't like the king or whatever. I just think that king is kind of a bad card for my opponent's range, And so I didn't really want to lose him. I thought I'd have a better chance of getting paid on the river. And now the river comes the 8 of diamonds, completing the flush on a final board of Jack 4, Trey, King 8, and the backdoor diamonds got there. He checks one more time. This time I bet 1,200 and my opponent folded. So I was not able to win a big pot, even though I did flop the nuts on that one. I want to talk about the player in seat 1, Ron Fetch. Older gentleman, very well groomed, brushes his hair, looks nice, seems friendly enough. I Googled him and found that he was actually at the final table of this year's seniors event here at the WSOP. So I had a player who had come fairly close to winning a bracelet already this summer, and he seemed quite confident in his game. I will say that I did not think Ron was a full-time player. I imagine he probably has a job, or perhaps he's even retired. He struck me as a successful person, but probably not a full-time poker player. And he was very aggressive. In fact, he seemed to be a bit wild and loose. Not what you'd expect from someone in the seniors event, but maybe the definition of senior is changing as all of us poker players from back in the day are graduating to senior status, if you will. But I mention all this because I kind of devised a strategy to try to exploit the fact that Ron was so aggressive. I really wanted to try to isolate him and 3-bet him. He was opening all kinds of hands from all kinds of positions, and I felt like I could maybe loosen up my 3-betting range and try to see if I could get him to make a big mistake in a big pot when I had the best hand in position. So that was the idea. Later in the day, we were joined by a German pro named Christopher Putz, and he's a very, very good player, someone I'm quite familiar with. He's got millions of dollars in cashes. In this level 2, I opened from middle position, and then Chris 3-bet me, and I had pocket 8s. I made the call. I'm out of position, but I think my hand is good enough to call with. You can also maybe 4-bet if you think that Chris is getting out of line, but he hadn't been at my table that long, and I really didn't know. But his reputation as a good, strong, solid player from Germany did precede him. The flop came King of diamonds, Jack of diamonds, 4 of spades, and I checked. Chris c-bet, and I folded. Later on in the next level, I got a chance to get my opportunity that I've been looking for versus Ron Fetch. So he opens under the gun to 1,100, and the action folds to me in the hijack position, and I've got the ace of hearts, 10 of clubs. I decide to go for my 3-bet here. Just because he raised under the gun, I'm telling you guys, there's no respect due to Ron Fetch's under the gun opening range. So yeah, the blinds are 300, 500, by the way, 500 big blind ante. So he just makes it 11, and it's on me with the ace 10. I 3-bet to 3,200, really hoping that nobody on my left. I've got the Israeli pro on my left. I've got Christopher Putz on my left. I'm hoping these guys will just go away, and they do. In fact, it folds all the way around back to Ron, the under the gun raiser, and he calls. So now, with about 8,000 in the middle, we see the flop, and it comes 10 of spades, 5 of hearts, 4 of clubs, 10, 5, 4, rainbow, hero with the ace of hearts, 10 of clubs for top pair, top kicker, and Ron checks to me. I decide to go for a big value bet here. I'm hoping I can catch him with like Jack 10, Queen 10, King 10, or maybe a pocket pair between 10s and 5s, possibly a gut shot with a hand like Ace Deuce. I'm telling you, all of these hands, suited or not, are in this player's raise and call the 3-bet range. I haven't seen him fold to a single 3-bet all day, and I've been playing with him for about 4 hours. Anyway, he checks. I bet 5,000 into 8,000, and Ron makes the call. The turn comes the 6 of hearts, so our board is now 10 of spades, 5 of hearts, 4 of clubs, 6 of hearts, and Ron checks again. I decide to go for more value. I should mention Ron has about 110,000 in his stack. Things are going quite well for him today. I have just about the starting stack. I think I was down to about 55K at this point. Nothing really to get panicky about, and especially now that I'm in position with top pair versus a player that I think is way too loose. I decide to bet again. He checks this turn card. I put in 8,500 into 18,000, and Ron says, I'm all in. So now if I want to continue in this hand, as I've sprung my brilliant strategy against this wild loose player, I need to call for the rest of my stack. Guys, we start this hand with over 100 big blinds. Do you really want to put in 100 big blinds, even against this type of guy? I mean, let's look at what his value range should be. Well, maybe he made a straight, right? He could literally have 2-3 or 3-7 or 7-8. He could have a set, pocket fours, pocket fives, pocket sixes. I think all certainly well in his range. And those are the hands that are beating us. There are other hands, like perhaps a turned flush draw, maybe with a combo, something like an 8-4 of hearts. I mean, there are a lot of hands that have a lot of equity against us that could potentially play this way. And just for me, I really wasn't expecting to get check raised here. I hadn't really seen Ron do anything quite like that. His MO was more check, get bluffed, call. Check, get bluffed, never fold. Check, check, and win a big pot. That's what he's been doing kind of all day. Just really being super sticky, but not putting a man to a decision quite like this. I decided to fold. I don't know. I have top pair, top kicker, but that was just way too many chips for me to call off. And I kind of regretted the sizing that I used on both the flop and the turn at that point. But I really did have a plan of attack and a strategy that I felt would best exploit this opponent. Well, things continued to go poorly. I would open king, queen, and then the flop would come all low cards. I would maybe try a C bet and somebody would check raise me, or maybe I would check behind and then my opponent would bet big on the turn. Stuff like that kept happening. Bottom line, with the blinds still at 300, 500, I was down to 29,000, which in the main event is a ton of chips. You've got 60 big blinds with 2-hour levels, and you're just not in a hurry. I knew that I can't panic. I've been studying this tournament nonstop for 6 months, and I'm ready to get back into the groove. So the action folds to a really nice guy on my right. He is an American of Asian descent. He's one of the guys who thought it was cool that I have a poker podcast and was signing up to subscribe to this podcast while we were sitting there on the 4th of July playing day one together. So super nice guy. We had a nice little banter back and forth, good chit chat at the table. He strikes me as a decent player, also probably not a full-time professional, but he definitely knows his way around the poker room. And he makes it 1,100, so just over 2 times the big blind. And I'm on the button with the queen of diamonds, jack of diamonds. I think this hand plays well as a call. It also plays well as a 3-bet, and I do have tough opponents in the blinds. Still, I want to mix up my play here. I don't want to always do the same thing versus players who are paying attention. So I just call this time, and the blinds did fold, so I was happy about that. And we saw a flop, heads up, in position, hero with the queen of diamonds, jack of diamonds, and the flop comes king of spades, jack of spades, 9 of hearts. So king, jack, 9 with 2 spades. We've got middle pair and a gut shot straight draw. My opponent c-bets 1,500, and I think calling is totally fine here. I made the call, and the turn is the 8 of spades. So 3 spades now on the board, king, jack, 9, 8. And this time villain checks. I do think my pair of jacks will be good a lot in this situation, but I just didn't know how I was going to react to a check raise, and I didn't put it past this guy to check raise bluff me. I also was kind of having trouble coming up with hands that I wanted to get called by. I guess Jack 10, maybe. But yeah, I decided to check behind. Questionable for sure, but that's what I did. And the river was the deuce of diamonds. So final board, king of spades, jack of spades, nine of hearts, eight of spades, deuce of diamonds. And this time my opponent bets big, 5,500. Almost a pot-sized bet here. It didn't make much sense to me. And when nothing adds up and things don't make any sense and I just don't know what the heck's going on, my strategy is usually to shrug my shoulders and make the call, which is what I did here. And my opponent showed the 10 of hearts, 6 of hearts. So he flopped a gut shot, turned a double gut shot, and then bricked the river. So kind of got there with 10 high and had to decide whether to check and give up or to take matters into his own hands and try to bluff me. But yeah, I felt like my hand was strong enough to call, and I'm glad I did. It was good for my confidence to catch a bluff and also good for my stack to start moving in the right direction. After a little while, still in the same level, this very same kindly Asian opponent opens from the low jack position, 1100 again, and I'm in the high jack with the king of hearts, 10 of hearts. I actually think in the main event, you can absolutely just throw this hand away. You know, it's not as good as it might look. It's kind of pretty, 2 to a royal and all of that. But with tough players on my left and having such a marginal holding facing a raise, I think it's totally fine to just chuck it. I did not chuck it. I decided to call. I think you can also go for a 3-bet here. Again, kind of buying the button, if you will, getting some of these tough players on my left to get the heck out of the pot. But yeah, I decided to call and see a flop, most likely multi-way with the king 10 suited. Why not? So I make the call and it folds around to Ron Fetch, the older gentleman who shoved on me earlier, and he's in the big blind and he makes the call. So 3 of us are going to see a flop, and it comes king of spades, 10 of clubs, 4 of diamonds. Perfect flop for me. King 10, 4, rainbow. We've got top 2 pair, and I'm thinking finally I've gotten into a very favorable situation with the players I want to have on my right, and I'm in position with the best hand. I'm very, very excited about this. King 10, 4, rainbow. We've got top 2, and Ron checks. The low jack bets 1,300. I raise him small to 3,300, and Ron in the big blind cold calls. So he checked and then called a bet and a raise, and then the original bettor also called. So all 3 of us are still going to see the turn, and it comes the 4 of hearts. This is probably the worst card for me to see at this point. Remember, the flop was king 10, 4, and I'm thinking I have a king and a 10, so what the heck are these guys calling with? And then the 4 comes on the turn, and I'm thinking, oh no, does Ron Fetch really have like 4-3 right now? And he just made 3 of a kind. He's looking to check raise me again on the turn, but he does check. And then the low jack checks, and I decide to check behind. I was a little worried about the 4, but I figure if they check again on the river, I can probably go for value with my top 2 pair. And the river is the 10 of spades, a beautiful card, giving me a full house. And Ron Fetch leads 4,000 into this pot that's got over 12,000 chips in it. So he bets 4,000, and now the low jack calls. I'm in heaven right now. I'm like, this is great. This is the main event. I can't wait to see if I can get some more chips out of these guys. I just go all in for 24,000 or whatever, and they both fold. So I guess nobody had a 4. It would be a pretty tough fold with a 4. And Ron kept asking me after the hand whether I had quad 4s. So I guess he really didn't have a 4 after all. It really makes you wonder what he called with on the flop. And maybe he had a king or a queen jack and decided to try to bluff us both on the end. I don't know. Very interesting hand. And with that, I got semi-healthy, heading to dinner break with about 50,000 in my stack. And when we came back from dinner, by the way, I had a lovely dinner with my mom that night. It was so great having her here. After dinner, we were joined by Robert Varconi, 2002 main event champion. Robert Varconi, super nice guy. He did have a cough, and I offered him my cough drops, and he accepted, which I was grateful for that. And getting back to the poker, I actually had another chance to go toe-to-toe with my old pal Ronald Fetch, and I opened from the low jack position to 1,300. The blinds were 600, 1,200. So I opened with King of Hearts, Queen of Hearts to 1,300. And in the big blind, Ronald Fetch defended, so we're going to see a flop. Heads up, I'm in position with the King of Hearts, Queen of Hearts, and the flop comes Jack of Spades, 5 of Spades, Trey of Spades, and Ron checked. I decided to go for a larger C-bet sizing. I know that normally GTO would say you either don't bet a monotone board or you just bet really small. But against this opponent, you can kind of throw certain rules out the window. I bet 2K, and Ron Fetch punished me instantly, check raising it to 6,000. And I just didn't believe him. There was something about how quickly he did it, or how forcefully he threw the chips in, or just the fact that I'd spent an entire day playing poker with this crazy guy. I decided to 3-bet to 14,000, and I took it down. And then with just about 1 hour left in day 1C, we're still at the same table. We're all really familiar with each other after spending this whole day together. And Ronald Fetch opened to 1,300, and he's doing great now. He's got about 150,000 in his stack. And the action on my right goes call, call, call. So Ron opened and got 3 callers on my right, and I was in the cutoff with the 7 of Spades, 6 of Spades, and I actually considered 3-betting this. I've got about 78,000 in my stack at that point, so I've recovered fully from everything that went wrong early in the day, and I'm actually up a little bit, which is great. At the end of day 1, you just kind of want to have a decent stack ready to go into day 2. You just want to survive or whatever, unless you really get a great spot. So I decided to just call like everybody else. Why not? I just felt like by this point, everyone could see what Fetch was up to, and they probably wouldn't really respect my attempt to isolate him with a big 3-bet here. So I just called. The Israeli pro on my left called as well. And at that point, there's like 9,100 in the middle. And James, the player that we talked about earlier, the podcast listener, the guy who was talking a lot about comedy and everything, super nice guy, he was doing great at this point in the tournament. He had won like the last 4 or 5 pots in a row. He was really chipping up here late on day 1C, and he makes it 7,700 from the big blind. And everyone folds, including Ron Fetch and all of his callers, all the way back to me. I do have one more player on my left who might get out of line, but I decided to make the call. And guys, if you want to fold the 7-6 of spades here, totally fine. James had shown himself to be a pretty solid player. I really thought that he very likely had pocket aces, pocket kings, and the like. And with over 100 big blinds in our stack and the perfect hand to crack a big pair with, I was pretty happy to call. I really just want to get a good flop and put him to the test when he's got aces or kings, the type of hands that he's really supposed to have when he makes this play. And by the way, the fact that he had won so many pots in a row right before this hand just strengthened my read that why would he get out of line with some kind of bluffing hand here? He's probably got exactly what it looks like. Aces, kings, maybe queens. I guess you probably could throw jacks in there as well, But either way, 7-6 of spades is a perfect hand to see a flop in position against all of those big pairs and see if I can hit something like a straight or a flush, whatever. So I did make the call, and the Israeli player on my left also folded. So heads up, in position, there's like 22,000 plus in the middle at this point. And the flop comes 9 of diamonds, 7 of hearts, 6 of clubs, 9, 7, 6, and we've got bottom 2 pair. I was so happy. I was finally going to get a big stack to take with me to day 2. Forget everything I said about survival and all of that. This is the spot where we've done what we set out to do, which is outflop the overpair. And now it's time to see how many chips we can get him to put into the middle, and hoping that he's getting a bit chip drunk from having won the last 4 or 5 hands in a row. And maybe the chips just start to feel like toys at this point, like they're not even real. So I was extremely confident at this point that I had outflopped James, but I have to admit, I was a little thrown off when he bet 19,000 into the 22-7 pot. A huge bet here on the flop. I've just got like another 62,000 in my stack, and I guess what the heck else am I supposed to do? I've got 2 pair. I'm pretty sure this guy has aces or kings, and I'm all in, really hoping to get called. And he did call, and then I was surprised but still very happy because he shows the ace of hearts, 9 of hearts. So he kind of did make a play from the big blind. I think it's totally fine for him to just check or just complete and see a flop. You know, call Farrelly's raise and see a flop with a hand that flops well multi-way. I really didn't think that ace 9 suited or not would be in James's range. So he did surprise me with his holding. And now instead of 2 outs, he had 5. And I was very happy to be playing this huge pot that had 300 plus big blinds in it with 2 pair against 1 pair. And on the turn, it was an ace of clubs. Yeah, he called my shove, obviously. And he hit his ace on the turn, and then the river was like a king or whatever. And I had to go home after playing at this great table all day long and knowing that I would not be coming back for day 2, and that I would not beat my all-time best finish in the main event, which was 28th place 7 years ago. And that'll do it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please emulate the players at my table and subscribe to this podcast and leave us a nice review while you're at it. And for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas plays. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Luck and intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart.